So for example, today, if somebody has come and started searching for a trip to Phuket, right? So I know that person is looking for the trip to Phuket. As a flight partner, airline partner, I can target that person off-site as well because I have the first-party data of that audience, and that's feasible through the ad tech solution that we have on our side, right?
Brilliant.
And that
Brilliant.
can be done through not only direct buys, but we can also enable programmatic buys on the ecosystem. Same thing can be replicated for hotels. So if the booking is already completed, but I know that this person has not done the stays booking with us, we can actually retarget the audience and target them wherever they are to get them to consider hotels in Phuket in that case.
Brilliant. So you pretty much are building your own ad tech solution, but you are having the plugins with the big tech, pipes, and therefore you're able to provide a holistic view of how you can
Absolutely.
look at the journey, whether the audience is a prospect or a customer. You can actually look at it
Absolutely.
holistically is how you are approaching, and that's a very very big change in the way media has to be thought through. And therefore you are really saying that the future of media is about how you interestingly collaborate with multiple technology platforms, and how you really integrate them. That seems to be something that at least I'm picking up that as a very interesting perspective as far as how media will emerge in the future.
This episode of the Super CMO Show was made possible by the great folks at Moving Walls. Moving Walls provides a global technology platform built by out-of-home advertising experts, automating the process of planning, buying, executing, and measuring out-of-home campaigns. Moving Walls helps leading brands and agencies to move to audience-based planning, improve turnaround times with automated proposals, and implement programmatic digital out-of-home and verify campaign performances. Moving Walls helps measure, reach, and influence moving audiences across the world. For more information, log on to www.movingwalls.com. Hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Super CMO Show. In this episode, I am talking to Mahek Shah. Mahek Shah is the Global Head of Media, AirAsia. I spoke to Mahek about how she has seen marketing change over the years and what are the skills marketers of today need to equip themselves with versus what was there a decade ago. I also asked her about her experience of working on the agency side and on the client side, and what are the differences she has had as an experience. I specifically asked her about the new emerging media landscape and the emergence of first party data and the monetization of first party data. I also had a conversation with her on the campaigns that she likes and the ones she's created and she's proud of. Over to my conversation with Mahek Shah.
Hi, Mehak. Thanks a lot for joining the Super CMO podcast, and lovely having you as a guest today.
Thank you, Swami, for inviting me over. It's a pleasure for me to be here and have discussion with you.
Thanks. So, Mehak, I just wanted to straight away dive into some of the aspects of your experience in marketing. And I think you've got quite a long stint in the marketing world. And as you entered the marketing world to what you see today, what are the changes that you have seen, and how is it different from the time you saw to the time what you do today?
I think a lot has changed. So, I mean, very interesting question as well. Back then, when I started, it was a lot about offline. There were jargons like ATL, BTL, and everything. It has evolved a lot, and it has changed so much that I think the landscape of marketing is changing almost every day. So, what you know today was already history, and there is something new that you have to learn now. So yeah, I actually started off with a BTL agency where the focus was a lot around events, activations, creating customer experiences and such. Gradually, I think what I noticed was there's a lot of digital that came into picture. So I've seen the evolution of digital also, from just being microsites to display banners, and how things have come along to programmatic today, now leveraging AI and trying to use the first party data and do the targeting for the audiences with that. And along the way, of course, a different experiential marketing that has also evolved. I think from just being, say, a static out of home ad to digital billboards, and now infusing it with the first party data and how things are. So I think it feels like a lifetime of things that I've seen. I'm sure you've seen much more than I have, but yes, there has a lot has changed since then.
Okay. How has been the skills needed for marketing changed? For example, how did you see the marketing department in a client's end way back, say say a decade back, to what kind of structures do you see and skills do you see in the marketing teams today?
I think there as well, I think there was a lot of fragmentation or fragmented approach that was taken to marketing back then, right? Like people would focus on just digital, or they would just focus on offline or activations and such. I think skills wise, it has changed now where people are more integrated in nature. They will look at things from top funnel to bottom of the funnel throughout, right? So I think today's marketer has to be abreast with what's happening. They have to know what's new. They have to be aware about the latest technology as well, so that they can bring everything together for the customer as an experience, right? Yeah, so I think the key thing is, and I think the buzzwords are already there. So data, digital, tech, and how you embrace that for the consumer, that's critical. So those are the skills that are essentially required. I think back then it was more specialist skill, but now it's more about you have to be jack of all trades, but at the same time you need to know in depth also, so that the reliance on external agencies is probably less or not so much, right? So internally, you have to be strong and aware yourself.
Okay. So, from the role that I see, Mehak, you head the global media for AirAsia, right? Not often do you see a role like head of global media in a client's end, because it was always at the agency's end. So, how is the role of media within a client's end changed, and how do you see the role that you play within this organization where you run the whole media operations?
Yeah. I think my role has been slightly different. When it comes to media, there are two prongs to what AirAsia looks at and how, I'm structured over here. Um, in terms of the approach, we are looking at not just you know planning and buying media more strategically, but also looking at monetizing the inventory that AirAsia has. So it's a two-pronged approach where we buy as well as sell media inventories to our partners and advertisers and such. So that's the role that I play over here. And additionally, what I look at is look at getting more channel partners. So, for example, if you've seen the way AirAsia has also evolved, we have moved from just being an airline to a OTA platform where we are not only selling AirAsia flights, but also other services when it comes to travel requirements for a consumer.
Hmm.
So you can look at booking non-Air flights. You can look at also your stays planning. So when you fly to a travel destination, then you want to book your hotels, your local transportation. So we have AirAsia Ride and such. So integrating those channel partners into that ecosystem and providing them with visibility within the ecosystem. So I think there is a buzzword for it. It's called retail media, but when it comes to travel, it's more like providing that lower funnel exposure also to such merchants and partners.
Okay, okay. So, do you see clients increasingly, as somebody who's working with media closely, do you see clients uh, increasingly starting to monetize their assets and look at media as a way of uh, engaging with their customers for end-to-end experience? Are you seeing that as a trend?
This is, I think, it's a growing trend. Not all providers are able to do it. The places where people are monetizing is where they are able to capitalize on the first party data, right?
Mm.
Because that's where the meat lies, and that's where people are able to spend their dollars, or are willing to spend their dollars. I think when you as a brand start creating value in your ecosystem, you are able to monetize that, not essentially to sell, but when you are looking at partnerships, you can go and confidently talk to that partner saying that, hey, this is the value of my ecosystem. And hence, I think it's good for us to collaborate. So then you're able to identify the right partners. You're able to identify and value the assets that are provided by the partner. Of course, the benchmarks may not be same as the walled gardens of the world, like Meta and Google and such, but slightly different. It's a different customer reach that you'll be able to get.
Okay. So when you define an ecosystem, very interesting, you're using a word ecosystems, because ecosystems are normally used by technology companies, right? So for an airline like yours, how do you see your ecosystem?
Um, I see. So our ecosystem is like one-stop solution, right? So how we are able to get the audiences into this ecosystem. So whether it is on the website or the app, and how we are able to get them to provide a seamless journey for their complete travel requirement for flights, hotels, and also transportation. So that's ecosystem for me. So if you
Mm.
look at it from other perspective, like any other e-commerce brand, for them their app or their website would be their ecosystem. So how do you get the customer? How are you retaining them? How are you engaging them and getting them to come back? That's what will drive value for that ecosystem.
When you're really looking at ecosystems, you are looking at the whole end-to-end journey, right? Which is very different
Yeah.
from the normal, the airline marketing that we know, which is really to say, hey, there are reward points. Reward points is just one thing, but you're really looking at it from the overall end-to-end travel experience. That's really what you're defining as the value of the brand that you're building, right?
Absolutely. So even when once you have booked the flights with us, or with when once you book a flight, right, you would want to know, or you want to get updates about, is my flight on time, if my flight schedule is on time. At the same time, as a brand, I would like to segment that audience and see if they have not done their accommodation or the stays booking, how can I upsell to that person, right? So those are the things that happen within this whole journey, so that we are able to not only give them one solution of, say, just flight tickets, but also beyond that, and how engage them.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not sure if you've used the app in India. It might be slightly different, but typically, like within the app, we also have something called as chat, which is the platform where we engage the customer directly. We have communities over there where we allow two-way communication. So, for example, if you are looking at traveling to, say, Phuket, you want to know what are the things to do in Phuket, you can just go to that community, ask people, hey, what are the 5 things I can do in 2 days, right? And people will respond over there and give you some answers and some solutions, some ideas. So it's the complete engagement that can happen within the ecosystem then.
So let's discuss. You've seen and worked in agencies and with marketing partners.
Yeah.
Uh, how is the business model of the marketing agencies going to change over the next few years? How are you seeing the business model change? Because there's a lot of disintermediation of media itself, right? So, therefore, how do you see the media models changing in the coming years?
Um, I think it's quite interesting because I feel the way technology is changing, agencies are also trying to play catch up with that, right? Because technology is actually defining how media will shape or how marketing will shape. Um, in corporates, I'll take it in two parts here. So
Yeah.
corporates is where we are trying to do a lot of in-housing.
Mm-hmm.
So you've already seen shifts in a lot of bigger brands where they have created their own studios. They
Mm.
try to concentrate and bring in the media efficiencies as well
Mm.
by as a regional buy, for example, or corporate buy and things like
Mm.
that. I think the role and how media agencies also need to shape up is what is it that they can offer as a value to
Mm.
the corporates or the brands, which would be different from what the corporate and the brand already has internally. If if the brands are already bringing in those specialists, then the role of the agency actually diminishes over there, right?
Mm.
I think the approach that agencies need to start taking is more strategic. It has to be more consultative because that's where agency can play a stronger role
Mm.
than what they traditionally do. So it's no longer just about media buying, because if you just focus on media buying and providing media efficiency as cost saving, it
Mm.
won't cut through anymore. It has
Mm.
to be beyond that. It has to be much more than that.
Okay. So I just want to dig a bit deeper into what you are saying. Uh, uh, the reason why clients are setting up their own studios, are looking at their own
Consolidations in a way.
consolidation. They're looking at their own consolidation of various marketing tasks within their department. Uh, what did what was the reason why they started doing it? What did they not get, and what was missing? Maybe that's an area that could be interesting because everybody knows that's happening, but when you're sitting inside, you know why that is happening, right?
Yeah.
What's the value that's missing, if I were to ask you that question?
I think there are many factors to it. It's not that the agencies don't get it. It's definitely they do get that. It's just that when it comes to brands, you want a faster turnaround time, right?
Mm.
So literally, the briefs you've come from agencies, so you know the briefs were meant to be yesterday. The campaign was meant to be a week before, right? So it's literally faster turnaround times. Second is as a brand, nobody can be a better brand custodian than your own team, right? So
Mm.
you know better what are your values, what is it that will work. And it's easier to manage the stakeholders internally as well when there is a better control of the complete, marketing tasks that are there. Third is definitely the operational costs.
Mm.
From what you pay to an agency, and if you are creating your complete studio internally, there's a lot of savings that get
Mm.
driven over there. So I think that's another thing that corporates think of, especially in this world where everything is about budget cuts or budget savings, that you need to have bring in more efficiencies so
Mm.
that you're able to drive the business with higher profitability.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you look at something like that, where you're looking at faster turnaround times, you're looking at something that needs to be done yesterday, and engaging internal stakeholders,
Yeah.
you talked about that. That seems to be very critical because you're always sitting outside, and when you want to engage stakeholders, what do you mean by engaging stakeholders? So give me an example. It need not be your in your company, but you can say, if you're running media, when you talk about engaging stakeholders, who are the stakeholders, what are their expectations, and where do they see gaps?
I think engaging stakeholders over here would typically mean where you're able to get your management approvals faster, right? So it
Mm.
could be at C level or whatever levels the senior most level has to approve the final output of the work that you're doing. It's essentially to be able to understand what the business objective is, what I am doing, is it able to match that properly or not? It's
Mm.
the key responsibility of a marketer to be able to help solve the business problem Sometimes when it comes to agencies, they may not be able to address these two things very closely,
Mm,
because the visibility that they would have is only, in a way, it's isolated, right? Because
correct.
you've bought the agency on board, for example, only for, say, offline marketing,
Mm,
in lack of better words.
correct.
But the problem probably requires a trade solution and not so much of a marketing solution, right? So you
Mm,
as a marketer can understand that and be able to help bridge that gap.
mm.
And that's when I think the role of the marketer changes over here, and that's why internalization helps, or in-housing helps a lot, because you know what are the three things that you need to do to help achieve, solve that problem that's there for the organization.
Brilliant. I think you've hit upon a very important point, which is solving the business problem, which is sometimes not given enough attention. You talk about brands, you talk about communication, you
Yeah,
talk about media
yeah,
buys, you talk about uh, uh, media efficiencies, but very often there is a conversation around the business problem,
correct.
right? Uh,
Exactly. Like I'll be honest. When I was younger, I used to always feel, why is this not getting approved by the client? What is missing over here when we have tried addressing the brief and this is already there? And then you see that, oh, the brief has changed, but the brief has not really changed. It's just that the requirement that's there is not properly getting met
mm.
by the solution that you have provided. That's why the brief is changing, because you're trying to identify what exactly is the challenge or the problem that you're trying to solve over here.
So,
So
yeah,
yeah,
no, I totally agree. I totally agree that that's the real challenge, which is solving the business problem. Because we talk about everything outside the business problem,
yeah,
and finally we end up actually putting some money and then realizing that the business problem is not getting solved, and therefore you pretty much you use another word which is called control,
yeah,
right? You don't have control when you are sitting outside, but when you're
correct.
sitting inside, you have control. So what kind of a control are you talking about, and what does that control do to solving the business problem? Give me an example, a real life example of how it happens, and therefore it makes sense.
See, I think it could be very simply put across, like, uh, when we talk about media campaigns, programmatic ads, first party data, and everything, as an agency, you wouldn't have access to that kind of data, right? That
Mm,
the brand already owns. The data team of the brand, because now brands have evolved a lot in terms of their structures and the organization structure overall, so most of them now have their own internal data team as well, who
mm,
understands the data, who understands the audience much better than the agency would.
mm,
So the marketer is in a much better position to understand who the audience is, who is transacting with me, who is just coming and fishing
mm,
with me, and who is who have I really lost and why I have lost. I think why is something that a lot of brands need to still figure out, but
mm,
otherwise the initial three things, right, it's easily controllable by the brand to understand what works and what they should be doing. Maybe the marketing problem is not about doing a campaign on programmatic ads, for example. It's more
mm,
about just doing a CRM activation and
mm,
be able to engage that audience and get that audience back into the ecosystem.
mm,
So I think those are the things that are in better control when it comes to the brand.
mm,
Agency won't have access to those things. That's
mm,
why when agency takes a consultative approach, they can help solve the problem because they will be able to diagnose the problem. They may not be able to get involved into the operations, which the brand would be able to do now, but agency can definitely take a consultative approach and help advise the brand on what are the right things to do. Because I mean, just imagine, right? When I say today's market, there has to be jack of all trades. You wouldn't know exactly what to do, what not to do. That's why
mm.
you need that kind of partner who can help you go to the next level. So when you take a consultative approach, it becomes much easier for the brand to also get that support then.
No, no, I think it's a lovely point that you're making. What you're really saying is the harvesting of the data, the harvesting of the knowledge, the harvesting of the insights, when it just sits inside the client organization,
Yeah,
there must be new value that needs to be brought in by the agency.
that's right.
And that, I think, is the gap that you are talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Clearly, how would you bring that value? And that's when I'm willing to invest and grow with you. That's the new model. And maybe what worked for the last 50 years may not work for the next 50 years. So therefore, that you need to really now look at it and then say, when the disruption happens internally,
yeah.
and when media is actually getting disintermediated, you need to find a new method of engaging with, say, a media professional or a media head like yours, and saying, your team, and then saying, hey, this is the value that we will bring in. So therefore, the redefinition of value itself is something that the business model has to look at going into the future, right?
That's correct. Absolutely right.
Okay. The other interesting thing, Mehak, that I saw was this whole thing that AirAsia talks about, this whole super app as a model, right? And it's really interesting that you've now called it Move, and you've looked at the whole journey holistically. Not many airline companies look at it, but honestly, I think it's a refreshing approach
Yeah.
to the travel experience. uh, uh, Talk to me about the super app and what it does, and what is the value uh, differentiation that it brings to a traveler, and therefore AirAsia as a brand.
Sure. Um, so, Swami, I think this goes back to AirAsia's DNA actually, right?
Mm,
So, AirAsia, when it started back in 22 years back, we we started this brand as Airline, and the idea was to democratize travel in the region.
mm,
So it's basically like, anybody can fly. That
mm,
was the objective. So we are a low cost carrier. We provide the best value to the passenger who's flying with us, and we allow them to travel around the region anywhere. I think in 2020, just during or before pandemic, actually, we were trying to pivot our business, and that's when we did the pivot of the business also to super app.
mm,
um, the idea of super app was to be able to provide any day solution to the customer. I think it was more short term, but the focus now that we have is to provide end to end travel experience to the customer who's coming to us, and a very seamless experience. So now when you come to super app, or we will rebrand soon as AirAsia Move, it will be about not only booking your flight tickets with us, so you can actually book not only AirAsia flights, but also non-AirAsia flights.
mm,
You can also look at booking your stays with us. So if you're planning your trip to Phuket, you can actually fly with AirAsia, and you can also book a hotel with us. And
mm,
what's interesting is we have introduced a product called Snap. So
mm,
Snap actually combines the flight tickets and hotel tickets and provides a much better value bundle for you, so that
mm,
you can actually book the complete package of your flights and hotels together. And then it comes with the last mile or the first mile solution of going to the airport and then commuting in the city, right? So that's where AirAsia Ride, which is the e-hailing services that we have, comes into picture. And we have also extended that with AirAsia Transport, which is basically within the city, travel through buses, ferry rides, anything that you require as a traveler. So literally, it's like stringing the whole journey together, be able to provide that as a seamless experience to the customer, engage them through chat so that they are updated about their trip details overall, and be able to provide them with a holistic experience. What's next is actually going to be things that you can do within the city when you travel with us. So that's coming soon in near future, but yeah, that's there.
Beautiful. I think the value proposition of, finally, when, if air travel was becoming a commodity, you are changing it by differentiating through the seamless experience that you're able to
Absolutely.
string through this whole super app thing, right?
Correct. Like right now, you have to go to maybe three different websites to find out the details, book my flight tickets, do this, do that. With flights now, you can just literally look at AirAsia flight rates. You can also look at non-AirAsia flight rates. Take whatever best suits for you, whether it is by your, you want to do a short trip or you want to do the lowest trip, lowest priced trip, anything. So that's possible to do. I think the idea is to, make the customer not go to 10 different portals. We get them to, book within the ecosystem so that they can actually find the value of that and be rewarded for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think so. Just to give a perspective, I had read about this many years back with Lester Wonderman, and he called this PRODUS, which is product and service.
Yeah.
Okay, so he said going uh, maybe 30-40 years later, brands will become PRODUSes. Okay, where you will offer product and service, and that's exactly
Yeah.
what you're really offering, and that's an
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
perspective. But tell me, therefore your competition, is it the OTAs? Because obviously that's really where most of them go today and book, and therefore why would I want to come to a super app and do it? And therefore, what differentiation are you able to drive from the consumer need that you see? What really are the consumer problems of an OTA today versus what an airline offers? I don't want to call it AirAsia, but
Yeah.
clearly, what's really the consumer challenge and the problem that you're trying to address, which
I
is
think,
not there, in the the e-commerce travel sites today.
understand. Um, I think the key challenge was to be able to provide the customer the value that they require, right?
Mm,
For AirAsia or in general, like AirAsia as a whole, it's all about price and the value. We are always the lowest. So anytime you come to AirAsia, you will find the lowest flights.
mm,
So with AirAsia Move, the key offering that we have for them, it's the best price that you can get in the market.
mm,
And they can go and benchmark it with any other OTAs or wherever it is, right? Again, when it comes to say other OTAs, you'll end up booking your flights separate still. It's not a singular journey, right?
correct.
But with AirAsia Move, it's a single journey. You
Okay.
don't have to go to different portals to go and do your bookings. It's all within the super app. That's why it's super app, because it's all together in one place, one login, one booking, and one itinerary. That's the ultimate goal.
Okay, okay. And when you look at your role as the global head of media, how do you see this changing in terms of the way you will look at media, the way you will sell media, the way you will work with partners? How does your own job definition and role change when something like this transforms within an organization?
Um, okay, so my my role and the job that the business that I have actually is very niche in that case. So it's
Mm,
very specific to travel audiences.
mm,
Unlike any other publisher, it's like you're able to reach the masses. Over here, it's very specific to travel audience.
mm,
And to educate agencies or even clients about that is important. So I think that's where we are focusing a lot right now, is to educate the clients on the travel audience, how that audience can be reached, how we can segment as specific as if people are traveling from A destination to B.
mm,
So you can actually do route specific targeting and
mm,
not just mass targeting of traveler in general, right?
mm,
So those are the things that I'm focusing on right now, making people more aware about how travel audience can be reached out,
mm,
making travel relevant to marketers in their customer journey as well. So, for example, if it is an FMCG brand or personal care brand, right? How can you be more relatable to a travel audience? So
mm,
introducing travel kits,
mm,
which anyways a customer would require, passenger would require when they're traveling internationally or even for a short destination. So those are the things that I try to educate them, make them aware how it is important. Um, and second is also the merchants or the partners that we have listed, educating them on how they can leverage the ecosystem to not only create top funnel advertising but also bottom funnel, so that they can drive more consideration for their own listings and get more conversions from the ecosystem itself. So it's
Okay.
a two-pronged thing.
So it's the top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel approach to the partners and to the to the
External
top.
advertisers also. So I think the way I position it is more like endemic and non-endemic merchants. So it's both of them that we are focusing on, but with different strategies.
So talk to me about endemic merchant and non-endemic merchants. How do you? What is your thought process there? Interesting use of the word. Yeah.
So for endemic merchants, it's mostly about getting them to drive more sales within our ecosystem. So for example, when I mentioned about hotel partners, when they are listed, how can they be able to drive more value from our ecosystem? So over there, we focus a lot on consideration, like, how can we segment the audience for that particular merchant and reach out to the audience, whether it is through emails, push notifications, or, on-site inventory that we have, and drive conversion for them. So consideration and conversion. Whereas for non-endemic, it's more about the top funnel focus, and to some extent either engagement or consideration, depending on the channels that they are activating with us, right? So driving more awareness for them, driving more consideration or engagement through the content that we create, or through other initiatives like sampling and such that can be done with the audiences.
Okay. So when you're creating your own media, and you got a small niche, as you rightly said, that's the harvesting that you're doing with your first party data and insights that you're building. How do you really fuse this with the digital world out there, which is the larger digital properties, because that's really where majority of the travel happen, and
Yep.
therefore how do you really eke out prospects
Yep.
into your media and your channel, if I were to call it, and how so therefore how do you really balance both? Is there any thoughts on how brands should do it? And I'm not saying it should be only AirAsia, but how should brands do it? Because at one end, brands really want to engage with their customers directly. At the
Yep.
other end, most of the customers are owned by these big tech companies,
Yep.
right? So therefore you have to keep on balancing this, which is really what I see as challenges for marketers.
Yeah. So that's where we have our audience solution as well, actually. Again, over here, we don't look at selling data to anybody
Mm,
because
mm,
that's privacy compliance that we follow on our end. But we leverage it more for our merchants and partners, the endemic partners that we have, so that we can drive the low funnel conversions for them. And over here, the approach is to take not only just the on-site inventory, but also be able to target the audiences outside of our ecosystem. So, for example, today, if somebody has come and started searching for a trip to Phuket, right? So I know that person is looking for the trip to Phuket. As a flight partner, airline partner, I can target that person offsite as well because I have the first party data of that audience.
mm.
And that's feasible through the ad tech solution that we have on our side, right?
Brilliant,
And that
brilliant.
can be done through not only direct buys, but we can also enable programmatic buys on the ecosystem. Same thing can be replicated for hotels. So if the booking is already completed, but I know that this person has not done the stays booking with us, we can actually retarget the audience and target them wherever they are to get them to consider hotels in Phuket in that case.
Brilliant. So you pretty much are building your own ad tech solution, but you are having the plugins with the big tech, pipes, and therefore you're able to provide a holistic view of how you can
Absolutely.
look at the journey, whether the audience is a prospect or a customer. You can actually look at it
Absolutely.
holistically is how you are approaching, and that's a very very big change in the way media has to be thought through. And therefore you are really saying that the future of media is about how you interestingly collaborate with multiple technology platforms, and how you really integrate them. That seems to be something that at least I'm picking up that as a very interesting perspective as far as how media will emerge in the future. Would that be a good statement to make?
Absolutely. So I think along with that, it's also about providing the seamless customer experience, because ultimately at heart of all this is the customer. If you're
Mm.
not able to give them the right experience, the right value, it's a very disjointed experience. So that's the core of all of this actually.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I pretty much want to wrap up with a couple of questions. These are rapid fire questions, and you can answer them with as much time that you want to take.
Okay.
Tell me one campaign that you wish you were a part of as a marketer. You can say the top two or three is okay, but if I were to say, hey, I saw that campaign and that's something that I wish I was a part of.
Um, Not recently, but I think this is one of the best campaigns that I've seen. So there are two of them. One is Coca-Cola's Share a Coke campaign. I think that
Mm,
was one of the most fabulous and interesting campaign that they have done globally,
mm,
and very interesting executions also.
mhm,
Coming from advertising agency background, so for me, creativity always plays an important role. So now that there's a shift in my profile, but yes, back then, even today, sometimes I feel those are the things that really help create the buzz for the brand. So that is one campaign that I think I would have wished I was part of. Second is Dove's diversity campaign. So,
mm,
making it more inclusive.
mm.
So that's one campaign that I think is also quite interesting.
Okay. One brand you look up to, and why?
Amazon.
Why is that?
It's progressive, right? So when I was young, I think Ogilvy was the brand. Uh, it still is. So even today, when I meet some of my ex-colleagues, I'm like always, or even my bosses now, so I like, yes, Ogilvy is one brand definitely. But I've seen Amazon, and I like the way they have created the whole business model.
Mm,
It's an inspiration for me, because that's the place that I want to be in when it
mm,
comes to even my media solution. So the
mm,
way whole Amazon ads ecosystem has been built, it has taken them quite some time. I think more than a decade actually.
mm.
So for me to be able to achieve that, also even a fragment of it is okay. It's a milestone for me. So Amazon is the current brand that I really aspire to be like, or want to be part of.
Mm, mm. And one CMO or marketer who uh, look up to, and why? It can be a couple of them. That's okay, but one marketer that who you look up to and say, hey, I learned many things from these people. It could be working with them directly, or you could have also learned because of the way they did the stuff.
Um,
One
there's not actually.
let me rephrase it. One marketer or a CMO who has inspired you, okay, and you're taking those learnings in how you practice marketing today.
I think one person, and this one I can definitely pin it down, because um, it's like one person who has really inspired me for media actually. So it's actually my professor, but he is an active, and he currently is also in the media, the marketing world still. So he's the one who taught me how media works, what media is all about when I was doing my post graduation and such. So this is one person that I really feel inspired me for media, because that's when I understood it's not just about numbers, it's about being strategic and how you're able to place media in the world of marketing and how you integrate it with the advertising world. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah.
And would you love to name him, or would you want to? Yeah.
I can. So his name is Vikram Tanna. I think he is currently in C level for one of the gaming companies in India.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And couple of books in marketing that have inspired you to look at this profession, and something that you would recommend to the audience, saying, hey, don't don't if you are in marketing, just ensure that you read these couple of books. So which ones would you recommend?
I'll be honest, Swami. I saw this question also before. So marketing books is not something that I completely follow by.
Which is also great. I think you can pick up ideas from other places, so that's fine.
Correct. So I think the Bible that I follow is Philip Kotler for sure.
Okay. Hmm.
He is the marketing guru. So that's one thing that I definitely fall back on. Even recently, when I was discussing with my sister, in fact, she is actually a teacher, and
Mhm.
but she was covering a course related to advertising and communication. So then I gave her some examples from Philip Kotler. So that's one thing that I definitely fall back on. And even today, when there are new joinees who join in, that's one book that I definitely get them to recommend, because in today's world, right, not everybody comes from a proper advertising, communication, or marketing uh, academics. They come from
Hmm.
different spaces who want to explore. So that's one thing that I definitely recommend. Second, I believe in reading books, but it's more for my passion. It's not
Hmm.
so much just about marketing per se. I feel culture plays an important role when it comes to marketing.
Totally
So,
agree. Totally agree. Yeah.
so for me, reading books that are more culture oriented helps me a lot, I feel. Not necessary not necessary that it has to be about just current times. Also, it can be more fictional in nature also, because that also shows how the background of that particular country or city has evolved or changed over time, because that shows the thinking of people from that period or that time. So there's this one book that has always stuck with me. It's called Things Fall Apart.
Okay.
um, it's written by Chinua Achebe. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
No,
it.
I'm not. Yeah.
So that's one book that I always remember, because that's something that I feel makes you understand culture so closely that you can relate to people and you know how you can communicate to people as well.
Okay, fantastic. And more recently, what's one campaign that you're extremely proud of, that you've been involved with, and which you think has added a lot of value to what you do today?
Um, I think very recently, I would say, would be my work with AirAsia, right? So I think last year there were some initiatives that we had done for digital out of home buys, where
Hmm.
we were able to look at sell tickets, because we were looking. So the campaign was about um, selling certain million tickets. So we were able to target audiences through the different, uh, out of home, digital out of home screens, by the traffic that was there. So that was a programmatic buy that we had done. And I think it was for 7 million seats that we were looking to sell out within certain time frame.
So,
So
so
that
walk me through. That's interesting. So, 7 million tickets, and through out of home, completely digital out of home is what, and physical, right? So that's really how you would have done it.
Correct. So I'm also trying to recollect, because it has been a couple of months now. But yes, it was 7 million seats that we were looking to sell out. And it was through digital programmatic out of home, actually.
Hmm.
So we had identified the audience, and, we were trying to tell them how many seats are left, what is,
Hmm.
and trying to build that kind of urgency among the audiences to go and book the tickets. And the campaign was for a week, and we had extended it by 3 days so that we could, the last 3 days is to do the final call kind of push then.
Fantastic, fantastic. I think what you're really talking about is use of media in a far more dynamic and a real-time manner is what I think you're talking about, right? Correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the
So,
big change that you're talking about, right? Yeah,
so a
go
lot
ahead.
of customization. I mean, digital out of home is another area where I've seen a lot of evolution that has happened. I think if you talk about out of home 6 years back, 7 years back, it was almost dead, I can say, because it was all static. Brands were not investing in media. When digital out of home came in, it became much more interesting because they thought, okay, this is walking, you are able to reach out to the moving audiences through the video ads on the roads or in transit wherever they are. I think the next level to it came when the programmatic landscape came in, where we are able to connect those screens directly and be able to talk to the audiences based on their location, based on what they consider their interests. It's not about just mass targeting, but it's actually being able to reach out to the right audience at the right time, at the right place now.
Fantastic, fantastic. And my last question, Mehak, is what would be your advice to a, say, an 18 or a 20-year-old or 21-year-old who is a marketing student in a college or a university today? What is one piece of advice that you would give them?
Um, I think a lot of them come with the expectation it's like a glamorous world. Don't think of it like that. um, um, have an open mindset, understand data. I think data is key today, and even in future it will play a very important role, because if you understand data well, if you're able to articulate the data well, you will be able to analyze your audience in a much better way. And it's important for them to understand insights. I think what I see that goes missing today in today's newer generation who's coming into this field, they don't understand what insights mean.
Mm,
And um, and I think it also comes from the fact that if you see some digital ads and then you are like, okay, these are the numbers, this is it. But what really goes behind? Why are they interacting with you? So analyzing that, being able to derive the right insights so that you can communicate to the audience effectively is important. So try to understand those things and be rooted to understanding the consumer when you're
mm.
doing any marketing campaign. If you don't understand your consumer, you won't be able to connect with them, you won't be able to interact with them, you won't be able to get them hooked onto your brand at any point of time.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mehak. That was a very, very good conversation. I must tell you that the perspective and the landscape that you shared with us on how marketing has changed, how the new media is taking its position in the marketing world, the in-housing of the marketing teams, and the reasons and the whys was very interesting. And finally, the 7 million campaign that you spoke about and the advice that you gave was very, very pertinent. Thanks a lot. I loved this conversation, and thanks a ton for your time.
Thank you so much, Swami, for inviting me over and having me over for this session. I think it's been a great learning, because discussing with you also made me think a lot of things that, okay, this is how it is. So it was a good introspection in a way when I was discussing with you, and happy to be here. Thank you so much again.
Welcome. Thanks a lot.